And now, back to the Dr. A Show with your host, Dr. Will Aguila.
Welcome back to the Dr. A Show. Our guest today is Jared Koch, author of the Clean Plates Cookbook. Jared, there's a lot of confusion out there, a lot of conflicting information about what is vegan, what is gluten-free, what is raw versus cooked, and so on. Could you clear that up for us right here and right now so that everybody listening kind of gets a really good takeaway message from here and understands what all this means?
First, before we even go into that, the one thing I'd want to say is that very often there's this misconception out there that when you think about eating healthier, it automatically means that you have to be vegetarian or you have to be vegan, and that just isn't necessarily the case. So you could have a healthier diet no matter what type of food you're eating, as long as they're the right ones for your body. And so the first thing that you really want to be thinking about is just eating a plant-based diet, and again, that's often equated with eating vegetarian or eating vegan, so just to clear up some of the misconceptions.
What are the differences, vegetarian versus vegan?
When you're eating a plant-based diet, all that really means is the foundation of your diet is plant-based, meaning a lot of vegetables, a lot of plant-based foods, nuts and seeds, fruits, vegetables, primarily vegetables, because that's where you're going to get your most nutrients. And then so it doesn't mean that you have to be completely vegan. So when you're vegetarian and vegan, it's just a slight difference. When you're eating vegan, you're basically eating no animal products whatsoever. And then when you're eating vegetarian, you're eating some animal products as long as the animal wasn't killed to get those animal products. And so the primary ones are eggs and dairy, so milk and cheese. And so vegetarians will eat dairy, they'll eat eggs, where vegans won't eat anything with any animal products. And some vegans are very strict. They won't even have honey, which comes from bees. But, as a vegan, you're still eating somewhat of a plant-based diet, and as a vegetarian, obviously, because you're still going to eat a lot of non-animal-based foods, but you could also eat a very unhealthy vegan or vegetarian diet. You could still eat a lot of sugar, a lot of poor-quality oils, a lot of processed foods. So the most important thing, the most important takeaway is just to focus on eating real food, foods that the human body has been evolved to really eat. And so again, it's really your vegetables, your fruits, your nuts and seeds. Those foods are the primary foods. It doesn't mean that those are the only foods you need to eat, but those are the primary foods that you need to eat.
With that same argument, a lot of people may say, well, a raw diet is better than a cooked.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of people that believe that a raw diet is very important, and some people are 100% raw. So my take on it is that it is important to eat raw foods, but there's a lot of studies that show there's also benefits from cooking your foods. Sometimes that releases more nutrients. And so I think it's important to get a nice mixture in there of some raw and some cooked. I mean, obviously, if you're eating a raw diet and if that's something you want to experiment with and you could thrive on that, then that might be the right diet for you. I think for most people, getting some kind of combination of raw and cooked foods, the theory is that cooking foods will destroy a lot of the nutrients in a food. I don't know if that's necessarily true across the board. So while I think it's important to eat a lot of raw foods, I don't know if you need to be, I don't think it's necessarily healthy and safe to eat 100% raw food diet for most people.
Certainly certain meats would be dangerous, but also eating a raw carrot, that's not very difficult to do, and it's actually very delicious. You try that.
No, of course. I mean, again, I think, eating raw nuts, raw seeds, some raw vegetables, I think it's great to get those raw foods in your diet. I think what happens is some people take that to the extreme, and then that's all they'll eat is raw foods, where I don't think that's necessary, and necessarily healthy for a lot of people. I think raw foods can be very healthy and people should eat them, but not necessarily the only thing you should be eating.
Now, some people switch to more of a plant-based diet for their health, and I suppose that Bill Clinton did that.
Good question. My understanding was that he switched to more of a vegan diet, but also plant-based diet, so a combination of both. Again, sometimes the terms they use interchangeably, and I think that's doing some harm. I think everybody should really focus on eating a lot of plant-based foods and eating more of a plant-based diet. Well, not everybody necessarily needs to be vegan, and I think the reality is a lot of people get a little bit turned off when they hear the term vegan, and then they're not really getting the message that's meant to be getting across.
And you can prepare some of these plates really beautifully. I've actually gone to a vegan restaurant and didn't think I would like it, but I had a wrap there with coconut curry, tofu, and it was absolutely wonderful. It was delicious. Even I'm not a vegetarian or a vegan by any means, but I got to tell you, it was really, really great. some recipes in your book like that, or?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, so we have a nice mixture of recipes. We have, a bunch with animal foods, and then a lot of just plant-based, vegan or vegetarian recipes. And, the idea behind it is everything that we're about as a company, as a brand, is all about showing that you could eat healthier and it can be delicious. We actually have recipes from very well-known chefs that are, in the book, from Michael Anthony, who's the chef at a restaurant in New York City. He won Best Chef of the Year from James Beard. Another guy, Iron Chef Mark Forgione, Jamie Oliver. And so
Jamie Oliver, yeah.
There's absolutely no reason that you need to sacrifice taste and flavor if you're going to eat healthier. Yeah, you could prepare vegetables if you just want to do it just solely a plant-based dish. So many flavorful ways. One key is actually just using herbs and spices very liberally. It's kind of not a topic that gets talked about that much, but they offer so many health benefits. There's so many nutrients, phytochemicals, and they also just add an abundance of flavor to dishes. And so, yeah, you could absolutely, make vegan dishes, make vegetarian dishes, plant-based dishes that are delicious.
You have, like you mentioned, a lot of great chefs that contributed to your book. Do you have any favorite recipes in the book?
There's a Moroccan chicken that I really like. I mean, a lot of the dishes from the chefs that I mentioned are amazing. I'm actually working my way through. We had a chef from Napa Valley that I've worked with, and she put together a lot of the recipes. And so I'm actually working my way through all the recipes myself, and it's been a fun journey. And so what happens is I keep getting emails from people like, oh, I tried this recipe, it was amazing. And so then I'll go and try that one myself. And my mom actually made the chicken one, and she told me it was amazing. So I decided to try it, and it was actually really good.
Well, if your mom made it like that, it has to be good. Now, you also wrote the Clean Plates Guides to the Healthiest and Tastiest Restaurants in New York and Los Angeles. Now, tell me a little bit about how you researched that. How did that come along? I mean, what inspired you to do that?
That's where I started. We started with a restaurant guide in Manhattan, and then we started doing it in Los Angeles about a year ago. What happened was I was working with clients one-on-one as a nutritionist, and what I started to discover, I really wanted to reach more people with my message and help more people. And what I started to discover as I was observing what was happening with my clients and trying to understand what was really working and what was really leading to real actual change and improvement, started to realize that it's incredibly important to educate people and to support them while they're changing. But the thing that was really working most consistently was giving them practical resources, well-curated recommendations. And since I live in New York City, and that's where I was working with a lot of my clients, I would always keep a list of restaurants. And I would say to my clients, go try this restaurant. It's right near your office. They got better quality food. And my client would come back 2 or 3 weeks later and, oh, my God, I ate there, 3 or 4 times. It was delicious. So I'm going to eat there all the time. And so they would literally be putting better food into their body. And so that led me to the concept of creating a guide to all the restaurants in the city that are using better quality food that really meet my criteria. And so we created a whole research process and review process around that.
Well, a lot of people, you don't have this book for all the major cities out there, or even smaller cities. So someone listening in, say, Cincinnati or some other city, and they want to know what are restaurants in their area that they can go and eat a healthier food. What should they be looking for? How can they do that until you develop a book for their city?
Yes, absolutely. And we do hope to do that eventually. We hope to have a database of all the restaurants in the country that are meeting our criteria. In the meantime, some of the key things that we look out for are if a restaurant is serving animal foods, we focus on restaurants that are using animal foods that are at a minimum hormone and antibiotic free, preferably grass-fed or pasture-raised, raised in small local farms. We focus, so just really good quality animal food. We also focus on restaurants using good quality produce, so more locally grown, more organic. We also look into quality of oils, quality of sweeteners, quality of salt. We look into cooking methods, and we also look into menu selection. We look for restaurants that, just because a restaurant is serving maybe grass-fed beef or pasture-raised beef, and if you can't find any vegetables on the menu, we don't necessarily consider that healthy. So we look for places that also have a wide selection of plant-based foods on the menu. And then, of course, for us, taste is also very important. And so once we find restaurants that meet our criteria for health and nutrition, if you will, and sustainability, we also then have food critics that go visit the places and review them for taste. And so for us, it's really about the whole experience. We want people to realize that you could eat better and you don't necessarily have to sacrifice anything.
Yeah, and your whole book is about that there's really more than one right way to eat. And it's an excellent book, and we recommended the Clean Plates Cookbook by Jared Koch. Jared, it's been a pleasure having you on the show, and we welcome you back anytime. Where can our listeners find you online?
Sure. So the best thing to do, we also have an email that we send out a few times a week. It's free, and we really keep everybody up to date and just really, kind of help keep people informed and on track. And so it's at www.cleanplates.com.
Jared, thanks again for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up next, boost your sluggish metabolism to lose weight with the Thyroid Solution Diet here on the Dr. A Show as we continue.